Have you ever loved so much that it hurt? Have you ever trusted someone, believed with all your heart and still got hurt? And after all that, you asked yourself, why did this happen to me? In this video, I'm going to show you something few people have the courage to say. The pain that hurt you can also be the pain that teaches you how to live better. No matter how old you are, the heart never stops feeling. But the truth no one told you is that every heartache can turn into wisdom. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Today, if you're over 60, you've seen a lot in this life. You've lost people, faced silence, cried in secret. Maybe you've learned to stay quiet, to swallow the pain, to move on as if nothing happened. But what if I told you that this pain, the one that still lives inside you, wasn't in vain? What if it's been trying to tell you something all this time? Today, I want you to listen to me with your heart, because this video is a hug in the form of words. It's for you, who's had your heart broken, but still has love to give, wisdom to share, and a life to live. Because in the end, the greatest lessons of the soul live in the scars on your heart, and they're about to be revealed. The scars you can't see. Have you ever noticed that the deepest pains are the ones no one sees? That the most lasting wounds don't leave marks on the body, but in the silence of a gaze, in the way you take a deeper breath, in the desire to be alone, even when surrounded by people? Sometimes everything seems fine. Your body is standing. Your smile is there. Life goes on. But inside, there's a heart fighting not to collapse. And the strangest part is that we get used to it. We learn to walk with our chest stitched up inside, patched together by disappointments, unresolved longing, words that hurt more than any action, and silences that cut deeper than screams. A wounded heart doesn't bleed like a cut on the skin. It bleeds in the form of memories. Sometimes, it's a song that starts playing and brings back a time you've been trying to forget. Other times, it's a street you avoid because it holds stories that still hurt. Or it's the scent of a perfume that takes you straight back to a day that'll never return. And then, your chest tightens, your eyes fill up, but you swallow it. Because that's how you learn to cope, by silencing what no one would understand. But deep down, there's a hidden purpose in all of this. A purpose that doesn't reveal itself right away, but one that time that old, wise companion slowly helps us see. Pain, no matter how cruel it seems, never comes without reason. It doesn't enter someone's life without a purpose. Sometimes, it's there to slow you down. Other times, to show you that a certain path no longer serves you. But most of all, pain comes to shape you, and shaping hurts. It hurts because it forces us to face who we really are when everything falls apart. It hurts because it reveals our weaknesses, the things we try to hide even from ourselves. But as time passes, and only time has this power, we begin to realize that certain sufferings were, in fact, teachers. Teachers who showed us to be more careful with who we let in. Who showed us harshly where the limits of our self-love were. Who pushed us toward a place of greater truth, even if at first it all seemed unfair. With every disappointment, we learn a little more about what we don't want to repeat. With every hidden tear, a quiet strength begins to grow. And when we survive, all of it, when we get up the next day, even when we don't want to, when we choose to keep trusting, even with a marked heart, we're already learning something valuable. Because surviving pain is in itself an act of wisdom. It's proof that inside you, there's a resilient soul, a courage that endures even when everything seems lost. The scars you can't see are the ones that shape the way you love, forgive, and move forward. They're the ones that teach you to look at others with more empathy, that make you listen with more patience, that make you more human. And instead of hiding these marks, maybe the secret is to accept them. To understand that it's in them that the depth of your story lies. And that no matter how painful they are, these scars aren't signs of weakness. They're medals of a soul that survived, grew, and learned. Loving doesn't always mean being loved back. Love is one of the most beautiful feelings that exists, but it can also be one of the loneliest. Because the truth few people say, and that life, over time, shows us, is that loving doesn't always mean being loved in return. Sometimes you give yourself completely. You make plans, you sacrifice, you believe in the words and gestures, and yet, you find yourself alone, carrying a love that only exists inside you. This is a pain many avoid talking about, because there's a certain pride in admitting we loved someone who didn't choose us back. But those over 60 know exactly what this means. Life teaches us to love with more patience, more presence, more honesty. And still, in many moments, the love isn't returned. And that's when the wounded heart begins to teach. When you love and aren't loved back, you feel like there's something wrong with you. Like you failed, like you weren't enough. But with time and with deep self-honesty, you realize the other person's absence doesn't diminish the worth of your feelings. Because loving, in itself, is a noble act. A gesture of courage. A choice that shows the greatness within you. And in that emptiness left by unreturned love lies the first lesson. Love must be a two-way street. It's not enough for just one person to care, to nurture, to build. A relationship is an exchange. And if only one gives while the other only takes, that imbalance will eventually take its toll. Sometimes as exhaustion. Sometimes as resentment. Sometimes as a silence that grows between two bodies still holding each other, but already distant inside. But do you know what pain teaches most powerfully? That loving without being loved back doesn't make you weak. It makes you real. And even more, it teaches that the most important love in life is the one you cultivate for yourself. Because, in many moments, the only embrace available will be your own. And that's okay. That's where new beginnings start. After unrequited love, we relearn how to look at ourselves in the mirror. With more tenderness, with more respect, with more care. We rediscover ourselves, we redefine boundaries. We learn to say no. And we begin to understand that it's not worth losing ourselves trying to hold onto someone who's already let go of our hand. A wounded heart also teaches you about worth, your worth. It teaches you not to accept crumbs, not to beg for attention, not to reshape yourself for another until you forget who you are. And most of all, it teaches patience, because whoever comes next, if they're truly meant for you, will find a heart that's more whole. A heart that has suffered, yes, but now knows exactly what it deserves. So if you've ever loved alone, if you've ever waited for a call that never came, if you've ever gone to bed with your chest tight over someone who didn't even notice your absence, take a deep breath, because you're not alone. And that love, even if unreturned, has already served its purpose. It taught you who you are, how deeply you can feel, and above all, how much you deserve to be truly loved, including by yourself. The words left unsaid. Have you ever caught yourself talking to someone who's no longer here? Not physically sometimes, not even emotionally. It's like there are conversations hanging in the air, waiting to happen one day. Words stuck in your throat, feelings never spoken, apologies silenced by pride. And time passed, as it always does, but those words still live inside us. In our later years, this happens often. Life is full of meetings and goodbyes, some with warning, others so sudden we barely notice. And when we look back, we realize how many chances we missed to say what truly mattered. And "I love you" kept quiet for fear of seeming weak. A "forgive me" swallowed in shame. A "thank you" saved for later. And later never came. These unspoken words turn into stones, and we carry them in our chest, on our shoulders, in our dreams. They resurface when everything goes quiet, when we're alone in the living room, staring at an old photo, when we hear a song that takes us straight back to that unfinished memory. And what could have been a beautiful moment becomes a dull ache, because we know it's too late now. But even this pain has something to teach. A heart wounded by unspoken words learns the value of now. It learns that life is too short to hold back what should be shared. That pride is a heavy armor, and it doesn't protect you from regret. It learns that waiting for later can cost you dearly. Because later doesn't always come. And when we finally understand this, something shifts. We start speaking from the heart more. Saying, "I love you," without thinking it's silly. Apologizing even if we weren't the only one at fault. Giving thanks with depth. Complimenting with sincerity. Because we know the weight of a silence that turned into longing. Often, what separates two people is just one sentence. One gesture. One acknowledgement. How many relationships could have been saved if someone had just said, "I'm sorry"? Or, "Tell me what hurt you." Or simply, "I'm here, and I don't want to lose you." But not all is lost. Because even now, after so many years, there's still time to heal some of these wounds. Maybe not with those who are gone, but with those who remain. There's still time to speak more clearly, to love more lightly, to bridge the distances pride created. And if you feel there's something inside you that still needs to be said, don't wait. Call, write, speak, open up. Most emotional pain in old age doesn't come from what we lived, but from what we didn't live. What we didn't say. What we swallowed, thinking it was better that way. But the truth is, silence often hurts more than any misplaced word. And a heart once wounded by unspoken words knows. Time heals almost everything, but what truly mends is the courage to say what needs to be said. The strength that pain reveals. Have you ever felt like you were on the verge of giving up? That pain so deep you couldn't see a way out? The weight on your chest, the sense that your strength was draining away. Have you ever faced something so hard that you thought, "I don't know if I can keep going"? I know that, over time, these pains become more familiar. Sometimes they're no longer emotional crises, but a quiet struggle against the loss of a friend, a distant child, or even the loss of yourself amid life's changes. But what if I told you that this pain, cruel as it is, also reveals the greatest strength you have inside? Pain doesn't pick an age. It doesn't matter if you're 30, 60, or 80. It arrives unannounced. But if you look closely, you'll see it brings something beyond suffering. It brings a hidden power, a kind of resilience you only recognize when you're truly on the edge of collapse. Because contrary to what many think, pain doesn't break us. It rebuilds us. At first, you think you won't make it. But later, when you catch your breath and look back, you realize you did overcome it, one day at a time without even noticing. You discovered you're stronger than you imagined. That there's a force inside you that, no matter how hard life pushes you down, lets you rise one more time. And here's the curious thing. This strength doesn't come from grand victories or medals. It comes from the small things. From every step you take even when everything seems dark. From the days you got up, put on a smile, and walked out the door, even when you didn't want to. From the courage to keep loving after so many disappointments. Mostly, it comes from the simple fact that you're still here. With time, we begin to understand that pain teaches us to be more human. It teaches us to recognize others' pain, to reach out, to help without expecting anything in return. It teaches us that we're more than our losses, and that our scars, no matter how much they ache, are proof of battles won. Every battle leaves wisdom behind. Have you noticed how, after suffering, you see the world differently? You start valuing the little things, conversations with friends, a child's tight hug, the taste of a simple meal, flowers in the garden. Life, with all its pain, is also made of small, precious moments. And pain teaches us to see them with more attention, with more gratitude. I know pain isn't something we welcome. It arrives uninvited and often seems like it'll never leave. But it's a silent teacher. It doesn't just reveal our resilience, it shows us how much we're capable of learning, growing, and reinventing ourselves. And when we can look at pain as an opportunity to evolve, everything changes. Because pain, which once felt like an unbeatable enemy, becomes an ally, a teacher who, no matter how harsh, shows us how to live with more lightness and depth. So when you feel like you can't take any more, remember, you've survived so much already. And here you are, stronger than ever. The pain may have been intense, but it will never erase the strength inside you. To forgive is not to forget, it's to free yourself. How many times have you told yourself, I want to forgive, but I just can't? Forgiveness is one of life's hardest tasks, especially when the wound is deep, when the betrayal came from the last person you expected. Often, this pain comes from inside your own home, from a child, a sibling, a great love. Other times, it's rooted in events from decades ago. And even after all these years, they still hurt as if they happened yesterday. Over time, we realize forgiveness has little to do with the other person. It has everything to do with us. Because forgiveness, contrary to what many think, doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean what happened to you was fair. It doesn't mean you agree or accept it. To forgive is simply to decide that this pain will no longer dictate your life. Holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to get sick. You feel anger, bitterness, sadness, and it all turns into weight. A weight that exhausts you, that makes your body sick, that hardens your heart. And those over 60 feel this impact even more deeply. Because the longer we live, the more we realize what truly matters in life is peace, and resentment is anything but peace. Forgiveness is an act of emotional intelligence, of wisdom, and above all, of liberation. It's understanding that when you let go of this grudge, you're not freeing the other person, you're freeing yourself. You're saying, I won't carry this pain with me anymore. Of course, the process isn't easy. Sometimes it takes years. And often, the hardest forgiveness is the one you owe yourself for the wrong choices, for the times you stayed silent, for the paths you took out of fear, insecurity, or simply too much love. How many of us still carry old guilt? Guilt for not speaking up, for holding on to someone who didn't deserve it, for letting moments slip away that can never return. You must look at yourself with compassion. Understand that in that moment, you did the best you could with what you knew, and that mistakes are part of being human. Self-forgiveness is the first step to any healing. When you start releasing these pains, something inside you shifts. Your chest breathes easier. Your mind thinks clearer. Your heart opens again to new experiences, even to new loves, new friendships, new beginnings. Because forgiveness isn't an end. It's always a beginning. Don't wait for an apology to forgive. Life is too short to depend on someone else's regret. Forgive for yourself, for your emotional peace, for your health. For your freedom. If the grudge you carry has a name, a face, and an address, write a letter. Even if you never send it. Say everything you feel. Then tear it up. But let it go. Don't let this pain keep living inside you. A wounded heart that learns to forgive is a heart that chooses to live in peace. And in the end, there's nothing more precious than that. Not everyone will stay, and that's okay. Closing parenthesis. Over time, we learn that not everyone who enters our lives will stay until the end. And this is one of the hardest lessons the heart teaches. Because when we're young, we believe in forever. Promises seem unbreakable. The presence of certain people feels guaranteed. But life shows us something else. It shows us that some people are only meant to walk a part of the journey with us. They don't stay. And that's okay. It might be a decades-long friend who one day drifts away without explanation. It might be a child who takes a path so distant they barely recognize us anymore. It might be an old love, once everything to us, now just a memory. At first, it hurts. It feels like their absence tears a hole in our story. We insist. We try to understand. We search for answers. But there isn't always a clear reason. And sooner or later, We must accept. People have their own paths. Accepting this is an exercise in freedom, both yours and theirs, because forcing permanence hurts more than accepting goodbyes. Holding on to someone who's already left in spirit is a silent form of abandonment. You abandon yourself trying to keep someone who no longer wants to stay. The wisdom lies in recognizing this. Limit with dignity. Understanding that losing someone doesn't mean losing yourself, that the absence of another can be the beginning of reconnecting with your own company, because being alone isn't the same as loneliness. Often, it's in the silence of absence that we discover the sound of our own voice. Have you noticed how certain losses made room for new things in your life? Maybe, in the moment, it was too painful to see, but with time, that friendship that faded gave way to a new circle of love. That relationship that ended opened doors to a peace you'd forgotten. Even an unexpected distance from family might have taught you to value yourself, to set boundaries, to demand respect, because not every goodbye is an ending. Sometimes, it's just the universe saying, you deserve more, or this chapter is complete. And when we stop resisting, when we accept with a serene heart, the pain transforms into wisdom. Of course, there's longing, of course. The heart aches, you miss those who were important, but you learn not to beg for presence. You learn that love can't be forced, friendship can't be demanded, respect isn't earned on your knees. And slowly, a new maturity blooms within you. You begin to look at those who stayed with more gratitude. To nurture true relationships with more presence. And most of all, to become your own shelter, your own home. If you're facing an absence today, breathe. Feel what you need to feel. But know this, you weren't left behind. You're just at another point on the path, and new people may cross your road, more mature, more reciprocal, more aware. Not everyone will stay, but that doesn't diminish your worth. It just means life is always moving, and the heart, if it learns to accept, can dance even with pain. Self-love bleeds too. Many think self-love means constant strength, as if loving yourself is always being okay, always steady, always with unshaken confidence. But those who've lived long enough know self-love bleeds too. It also tires, wavers, gets lost. How many times have you diminished yourself for someone else? How many times have you accepted less than you deserved just to keep the peace? Or simply out of fear of loneliness? And then you realize too late that you were slowly fading away, stopping what you loved, pulling back from those who brought you joy, staying in situations where you were merely convenient, but never truly happy. A wounded heart teaches that. Self-love isn't arrogance. It's care. It's boundaries. It's knowing when to walk away from what harms you, even if you still love it. It's understanding that you, too, deserve to be chosen, that your presence is too valuable to beg for. And this isn't easy, especially after 60, when we've often grown used to living for others, for children, grandchildren, family, memories of a love that no longer exists. But there comes a moment, and it usually arrives with maturity, when the heart says, now it's my turn. My turn to listen to myself. To care for myself. To prioritize myself. And that's when self-love begins to bloom, not as a wall that pushes others away, but as a garden tended with patience. You start making peace with the mirror, walking lighter, saying no without guilt, and saying yes to what nourishes you, brings you joy, makes you feel alive. But this process is painful because it demands letting go. You'll need to leave some relationships behind, bid farewell to old versions of yourself. Cry when you realize how long you abandoned yourself, but you'll also smile when you see how much you're finding yourself again. Because self-love isn't a destination. It's a journey, full of highs and lows, falls and fresh starts, forgiveness and rebuilding. And even when it bleeds, it teaches. It teaches that no one can love you right if you don't love yourself first. It teaches that your worth isn't in others' approval, but in how you treat yourself when no one's watching. And most of all, it teaches that it's never too late never to start loving the most important person in your life. You. What remains after the pain? After the pain fades, and yes, it does fade, something remains. Not emptiness, not trauma, but a kind of quiet wisdom, a calmer way of seeing life, firmer, lighter, truer, you no longer rush as much, no longer chase those who left, no longer swallow your words, no longer lose yourself trying to please everyone. The pain taught you, sometimes harshly, sometimes gently, but it taught you. And what remains after the pain, is you. More whole, stronger, more aware of all you've endured, and yet more willing to live, because in the end, my friend, a wounded heart can also teach. And it teaches the most important lessons: who we are, what we want, what we deserve, and what we'll never accept again. You made it here, you felt, you learned, and now, perhaps it's time to share. If any word in this video touched you, share it with someone else carrying pain in their chest. Sometimes one phrase is all it takes to heal an old silence. Leave a comment. Tell me the most important lesson your heart has taught you. Subscribe to the channel. Every week, we meet here to talk with honesty, with warmth, and with the wisdom of those who know life doesn't end at 60. It just begins differently. And remember, pain doesn't define you. You do with it, does. And you still have so much life ahead.